Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, the new normal, flying into the U.S., is anything but normal.
I received an email from the international office, and they recommend me to not travel because it was so dangerous.
How traumatic tales of crossing into the United States are keeping many from leaving at all. I'm Natasha del Toro, and this is The Take.
I'm Albert Mokhiber. I'm an attorney in the Washington, D.C. area, and a large part of my practice is international and immigration law. Majority of my immigration clients are from the Middle East, but I have clients from all over. They're from Europe, they're from South America, they're throughout the globe.
So, Albert, since the Trump administration came into office, we've heard a lot of stories about people who are having trouble crossing into the country.
I just got back to the U.S., right, because the boat returned to the U.S., and upon coming, I was randomly searched. They bring me to a back room, they make me take everything off, anything I got on me. They told me I need to give up the phone.
They put me in chains everywhere, around my stomach, on my hands, my feet. Then they put me in a van and drove me to the detention center.
We heard about a French scientist who was denied entry into Houston and sent back to Europe because U.S. Customs and Border Protection found some anti-Trump material on his phone, specifically about Trump's cuts to science funding. Now, you're a longtime immigration attorney. What kind of stories have you been hearing about what's happening at airports and other ports of entry? And what kinds of concerns are people sharing with you?
Unfortunately, this is uncharted and unprecedented situations that we're seeing. I think the most extreme case that happened last week is a lawyer from Detroit, who was stopped and they wanted to take his phone because they wanted apparently to look at some of his clients or some information on the phone. So if it can happen to U.S. citizens who have a law background, what about, the simple person who's just going on vacation, doesn't know what her rights are, and then gives, forth all this information? It would actually be a violation for us as attorneys to turn over that information. Let's assume you're my client and I'm coming back from a trip from Canada or wherever, and I just give my phone over, and now all your information, I've just violated the lawyer-client privilege.
Right. We've seen these headlines of people who are being detained. We've seen people who they're going through a lot of hassles when they get to the airport. Have you heard about that? I mean, and is that
Yes.
something that your clients are expressing concerns about?
Yeah, they are, and there's also people afraid now to leave. Right? There's clients who have family members with health issues, or they need to tend to some serious business issues. Let's take Lebanon, for example. There's a banking crisis, and you may have to appear before court to resolve your financial loss, which was quite large, and you're afraid to go, and you may lose all of your money as a result. Or just people who want to go to their siblings' weddings. I mean, we're getting these every day, these concerns. And I think the advice that the bar associations are giving out pretty much is, if it's not an emergency, don't go.
We know Trump's crackdown on immigration has had a dramatic impact on undocumented immigrants. Border crossings are at the lowest level that they've been in decades. But they're also impacting legal immigrants, right, and tourists who are subject to increased security now. What kinds of things are Customs and Border agents looking for now, and who are they most likely to target?
It's a great question, because typically what they're looking for are illegal actions, people who've maybe on a list, they're international and national lists of known criminals, terrorists, so on. But if it's somebody who's got a political opinion that's different, that's illegal under our own laws.
And are they targeting anybody in specific? I mean, I guess that's something that we want to understand.
Yes, unfortunately, as everyone has seen in the news, people who've written articles or participated in demonstrations to end the war in Gaza, who've supported the rights of the Palestinians, they've been demonized. And I think there's an awakening now. I mean, I think everybody was in shock, right? And now people are starting to say, oh, wait, this is pretty dangerous. There's a poem that was issued during the Holocaust where they said, first they came for the Jews and I said nothing. And then they came for, the gypsies and I said nothing, and on and on. And then they came for me and there was nobody left to say anything. So there was a poet who sort of restructured that poem saying, first they came for the Palestinians and I said nothing, and then. So it's a very scary time, but it's a time to wake up and realize that we must come together as a family of Americans for these very, very vital laws and protections that are for everyone. They're not Democratic, they're not Republican, they're not independent. These are American rights for everybody to enjoy, including the people who are here.
So people who are protesting the war in Gaza, we've definitely seen these groups being targeted, but we've also seen Canadians who've been detained and treated harshly by U.S. Customs and Border Protection.
It was supposed to be a routine stop at this U.S.-Mexico border crossing.
And then this man just comes out and he goes, Jasmine, can you come with me?
That began an 11-day ordeal in U.S. detention for Canadian Jasmine Mooney, first in a cement cell dubbed an icebox.
There was girls laying on the ground with this aluminum blanket over their body, like a dead body.
We've seen people from the UK and obviously this French citizen
Right.
for having anti-Trump material on his phone.
Yeah, and it's taking it to a new level. Now you're banning political speech, and that is just contrary to what America's all about.
The Trump administration signed an executive order January 20th, increasing screening and vetting of anyone traveling to or from, quote, regions or nations with identified security risks. They also mentioned that one of the reasons why they want to, and I'm going to quote from the executive order, United States must ensure that admitted aliens and aliens otherwise already present in the United States do not bear hostile attitudes towards its citizens, culture, government, institutions, or founding principles, and advocate for aid or support of designated foreign terrorists and other threats to our national security. As you were saying, this is now starting to really go after political speech. I mean, they say they're addressing a security risk. Is this really about addressing national security risks?
Well, if we were at war with a particular country, whatever it is, and people were coming in and advocating for or on behalf of that country at war with, yes, these rules, these laws have been used sparingly in situations like that. But last time I checked, I don't think we're at war with the children of Gaza. So that should not apply.
And here's another question. Can they really just search your phone or laptop without a warrant? Is that legal?
No. If somebody has a warrant, a search warrant from a court, then yes, they can come and search your house, your business, where you're at. But a ICE warrant is not a search warrant. So they're two different things legally. At the border, you don't have those same rights. So if you don't comply, then fine, get back on the next plane and we'll see you later. But they can also confiscate your devices, and they have. Permanent residents have a little bit more of stability here. And of course, citizens cannot be denied entry, even if they refuse to provide their passwords or their devices, but they can still take your device, which is, again, that's not unique to this administration. That's happened in the past, but the enforcement level has increased quite a bit.
We've seen these headlines, but is this happening in sort of every day? Is this happening more and more often?
I think you're going to find out in months to come more details. Right now, it's just starting, so you don't know exactly how many cases. But for instance, it was reported that there's been over 1,000 revocations of student visas. So, initially they said 300, now it's over 1,000.
I guess something that's been so shocking is that it's happening so fast. I mean, Albert, I'm curious, do any other countries do this level of screening?
Yeah, a lot of dictatorial countries do it, and we want to stop it. We don't want to become like these dictatorships, right? They don't have the Constitution, they don't have the Bill of Rights. There's a Native American T-shirt that portrays 5 Native chiefs, and it says, "Unless you're one of our family members, you too were an immigrant." It's a very powerful statement. I mean, other than African Americans who came as slaves, most of the others who came were voluntarily coming and for a reason, and that reason is in jeopardy.
More with Albert after the break. So, Albert, one of the things that the administration is targeting, as we've discussed, is people's phones, electronics, computers. Yep. What would you advise a client if they were leaving the country and if they want to travel back safely and easily? What should they do?
Well, under normal circumstances, when your phone would be protected, you wouldn't worry about it. But now the technology is so amazing that phones, laptops can all be downloaded. And if you have personal information on there, and it doesn't have to be your political point of view, if you had a love letter to your partner, if you've got legal information about your client, if you've got business documents that, private and personal, you may want to think about taking a different phone. And that's what's being advocated all across the country now, is that since your privacy is not protected either by law or by technology, you have to be careful.
I can't believe we're even having to think this way.
I can't either.
Travel to another country.
Look, when I was a kid, I grew up on the Canadian border. I would ride my bike to go visit my cousins. I didn't have a passport. I didn't have an ID. I didn't have a license. I had a Western New York accent. They knew, I would have my Buffalo Bills cap on. They knew where I was from. But things have changed, obviously. I'm not saying we're going to go back or we should go back to that. But the difference between then and now is tremendous. And people are advised to keep copies of your birth certificate, of your passport on your person. I can't change the way that I look. My DNA, according to all these programs out there, is 100%, Arab Levantine. I'm not going to be able to, nor do I want to change the way I look. But if somebody sees me crossing the border or coming down the street and they're looking for somebody who looks different, I'm going to be that person they might pull over and randomly select. So how do I have proof of any of that? I don't, nor would I have ever thought about having that proof. But that's another piece of advice on your know your rights, that keep that there. And if you're not a citizen and you're a green card holder, keep a copy. In fact, you probably should keep it in possession. And the same thing goes for all types of visas. And by the way, you can still come. I'm not trying to scare people. If you have a reason to come, apply. And come and enjoy as much as you can of the United States. I'm still a great advocate of immigration, and whether it's temporary or permanent. And for those who are here, there's a new rule that came out just recently on registration. And it's very important, because if you don't follow this rule, you can be deported. So you do need to register. But if you had a visa, or you applied for a visa, or you're on a green card, you've already complied. This is for people who've maybe come illegally or didn't have a chance to comply. But those are important. Also, if you're here and you're a green card or in any other visa type, you must inform the Immigration Service within 10 days of your move, or you can become deportable.
Yeah, I know there's sort of different protections for different levels of visa holders. Maybe just a quick rundown. What are the rights that people have in this situation, and how do they do their best to make sure they're protected?
Well, again, the Constitution, Bill of Rights protects pretty much everybody who's here. There's certain things you won't have, when you're at the border, for instance, you don't have a right to an attorney. You can request one, but unless you're being actually detained, if you're just going through an interrogation, you can't call your lawyer. Okay, so people should know that. Once you're in the country, of course, you have the right to counsel. You have the First Amendment rights You know, you do have the right to speech, freedom of religion. You also have a right to remain silent. So you don't have to answer questions, but if you do, you better be honest. You better answer properly, or it's going to be used against you.
And I guess something that I haven't heard people talking about as much, when you are detained and deported for having different views than this current administration, for example, even though the U.S. Customs and Border Protection denied sending the French scientist back because he had anti-Trump stuff on his phone. They denied that, though we do know that he was sent back to Europe and his phone was confiscated. But one thing that we haven't talked about as much is like, well, what happens if they do detain you and then end up either deporting you or sending you back to the country where you were coming from? What if you live here and you have a job and you have rent or a mortgage or you have a family,
Well,
you have a dog? What happens then?
unfortunately, you're kind of out of luck because you can reapply for a visa, but if you're denied, and this is something most people don't know, it's been this way forever, is that you don't have a right to appeal a denial of a visa. And neither the Secretary of State, the president, or even the ambassador of that country, of that embassy, has the legal authority to reverse the consul officer. So that's a lot of power in one person's hands. So you want to make sure when you do go apply for your visa, make sure all your paperwork is in order. Make sure you know the answers to all the questions. Make sure that you have your passport valid. And, there's so many things. So a lot of people, what they're looking at is reaching out to, say, family law practitioners to have a trust in place. So that if they have, because a lot of these people have children that are born in the United States and they're citizens. And who's going to take care of them? So again, something we never thought about before, at least not to this detail or urgency, is have preparations for your minor children so that somebody can take care of them if you and your spouse are sent packing.
Oh, it's unbelievable that your whole life could be upended in this way. It sounds catastrophic. So you are recommending also to, would you say, like wipe your phone, review your social media posts? Is it on that level?
Well, I mean, if you wipe everything out, then it's going to look even more suspicious, right? I think what the organization like the ACLU and others are saying is, get a second phone just to protect your privacy issues. And that's the most important thing.
And Albert, I mean, if this level of heavy screening and all the deportations that we've been hearing about aren't enough to dissuade you from taking that family trip, there's also a potential travel ban that's in the works for more than 40 countries that could go into effect any day now. And when it does, could you be stranded?
Yeah, you could. The travel bans, again, these are things that aren't really well thought out because it's a total ban. And for instance, when they had the ban that included Syria, I was doing a lot of pro bono work for our church. And guess what? The priests and nuns couldn't come either because it could happen today, it could happen tomorrow, nobody knows. So the advice that all attorneys are giving their clients is come home or come back to the US.
Everything that you've been talking about, all of this kind of leads me to think that it would be safer for some people just to not travel right now, which it seems so bleak, as a result of strict border enforcement. You have more countries that are issuing travel advisories to the US. There's, I think, Denmark, the UK, Finland, they've all issued these sort of travel advisories. Some Canadians are boycotting the US altogether, and this is all coming in the wake of the pandemic when we were all isolated from one another for years. For a lot of people, this is really just wanting to go travel abroad and to just reunite with their families, with people they love. I mean, personally, for me, even just thinking about travel, how it opens your eyes to other cultures,
Right.
and it increases empathy for other people. I mean, it's really one of the reasons why I became a journalist. But then I think these Trump policies, these border policies, are really impacting people's desire to travel and to see the world. Albert, just on a personal level, what impact do you think all of this is having?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge, and on many levels. There's a lot of unintended consequences, right? We've got a World Cup coming up, right? So sports is going to be impacted. A lot of our athletes are here on these non-immigrant visas. Concerts, music, art, trade, which is a whole different issue. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So that impact, and then again, people, if they're not coming here, they're going to go somewhere else. So maybe they'll go to Europe, but maybe they're going to go to Russia or China. Is that really what the State Department and the administration wants to see? Is that we not only lose our friends, but they go somewhere else?
Right. I mean, it seems like a lot of these policies are really kind of leading to isolationism.
Yeah. Oh, that's what's happening. I mean, we're already seeing it, and it's unfortunate because it's something that doesn't have to happen. I mean, it's one thing, again, if you want to go after people who are here unlawfully or have committed crimes, the law's already in the book. It's just about enforcing it, and that can happen.
If you had any sort of parting thoughts about what is happening right now and Trump's America regarding immigration and these strict border enforcements that we're seeing.
I think at this point, what I would say is let's have a reset. Let's rethink these policies. Let's put them in compliance with the law. Let's reach out to the Arab American, Jewish American community. If your biggest concern is about the situation in Palestine, let's resolve both issues. Let's bring peace. Let's end the genocide. Let's bring the two parties together. And then all your issues about demonstrations and articles and all these things can go away.
And if we don't, what are you concerned will happen?
An unraveling of our society. Because again, first it was the Jews and we weren't there to speak out. Now first it's the Palestinians and nobody spoke out. And it will go from community to community. It's a horrible landslide that is definitely something that can be stopped.
Thanks for stopping by The Take. There is so much going on in the world right now, and we know that some of it is affecting you. What's happening where you are? And what should we be reporting on more? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll get to each one, we promise. We'll be back tomorrow.